Steve Nash looked calm, but his career collected real grudges. Hard fouls, playoff swings, and public shots at his MVPs left marks he didn't forget. From San Antonio collisions to TV jabs from former teammates, these are 6 opponents who pushed Nash past polite and made every possession personal for years. Let's start with the biggest shadow over Nash's accolades: Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq and Nash were friendly in public, but the record shows why Nash would circle this name. The first reason is simple. During the mid-2000s, Shaq kept telling anyone who asked that his guy Steve was great, but not most valuable twice. He put it in plain words more than once. Steve Nash is my boy, but he didn't deserve 2 MVP awards. That sentence undercut everything Nash had earned in 2005 and 2006. When a legend says your trophies should belong to someone else, it sticks. The MVP part is more than a headline. Nash's back-to-back awards landed because he changed how Phoenix played. The Suns went from a lottery group to a 62-win blur in 2004 to 2005. The next year, after high-usage talent left and Amari Stoudemire missed most of the season, Nash still kept a top offense afloat with pace, spacing, and surgical reads. That is the case his supporters made. Shaq did not buy it. He framed MVP as a big man award, or at least as a superstar award, and made it clear he felt slighted when he looked at a list that put Nash at 2 and him behind. Whether you agree or not, those comments lived for years and followed Nash into every TV panel and legacy discussion. It did not stop with old quotes. On set in the studio years later, Nash appeared on the TNT desk, and Shaq went back to the same well. He teased Nash about the stolen MVP trophy and asked to see it. Nash gave a quick smile and a clean counter. The room laughed. Under the joke was the same message: I still think those should be mine or my guys. If you are Steve Nash, a polite killer who never sold himself loud, that kind of running gag can feel like a slow leak in your tires. There is also the off-court wrinkle that people around the league still mention: a reported dust-up over a reality show idea. The story goes like this. Nash had discussed a concept. Shaq's show later looked suspiciously similar. A source said Nash was pissed at the lack of integrity. Even if you treat that as business chatter, not basketball, it layers on top of the MVP drumbeat and adds a personal sting. Most grudges are a pile of small things, not one explosion. On the floor, there were reminders that made the debate louder. In 2006, Nash's Suns beat a Shaqless Lakers team and then pushed deep again while Shaq, in Miami, won a title with Dwayne Wade. That gave fuel to both sides. Nash people pointed to team context and role. Shaq's angle was that rings and dominance should matter more than pace and assists. When Shaq came to Phoenix in 2008, the relationship turned into a daily test. Nash did everything to make the fit work. He fed Shaq early, toggled tempo, and tried to preserve spacing that had powered those Suns teams. Shaq embraced it, called himself the Shaq Twos, and put up numbers. But the trade cost Phoenix some of its identity, and the results never matched the early 7 seconds peak. For a point guard wired to maximize everyone, hearing the big fella keep poking at your awards while you are also trying to make him comfortable could plausibly harden feelings. None of this means Nash stormed around talking about Shaq. That was never his style. He was careful, measured, and team first in every interview. But look at the pattern through his eyes. A Hall of Fame center you respected keeps telling the world you are holding trophies that belong elsewhere. He repeats it for years on TV and podcasts. Then you hear a whisper that a media project you raised got mirrored without credit. Even if you keep smiling, you remember it. So if this list is about opponents Nash truly hated playing against or hearing from, Shaquille O'Neal fits. Not because of one flagrant foul or a single series, but because he kept turning Nash's proudest professional line into a punchline. For a star who valued respect and precision, that kind of public needle lands deeper than most hits in the paint. Next on the list is Shaq's teammate, Big Shot Bob, also known as Robert Horry. For Steve Nash, nothing stung like Game 4 in 2007. The Suns had just stolen momentum in San Antonio, and the series felt even. Final minute. Nash brought the ball up the left side. Robert Horry stepped in and hip-checked him into the scorer's table. Nash slid off the table and hit the floor. The arena went silent, then exploded. The play triggered chaos on and off the floor. Nash's teammates rushed toward the scene. Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw took steps off the bench. It looked like nothing more than instinct, but the rulebook was clear. Leave the bench during an altercation and you sit. The league reviewed the tape overnight and issued suspensions for Game 5 in Phoenix. Stoudemire and Diaw were both out 1 game. Horry received 2 games for the foul and the extra contact with Raja Bell in the aftermath. The math crushed Phoenix. The Suns' identity depended on depth, pace, and the right mix around Nash. Stoudemire was their primary finisher and the best vertical threat on the floor. Diaw was the connective piece who could guard up a position, make the extra pass, and keep the spacing clean. Removing both at once stripped Nash of the options that made the offense hum. Game 5 showed the cost. Nash still created looks, but San Antonio flattened drives, met shooters on the catch, and controlled the glass. Without Stoudemire's rim pressure and Diaw's versatility, Phoenix leaned on smaller lineups and tough jumpers late in the clock. Tim Duncan camped in the paint, Tony Parker pushed tempo the other way, and Manu Ginobili punished every mistake. San Antonio took the game in Phoenix and the grip on the series with it. From Nash's point of view, the pain was simple. A single cheap shot changed who could play in the next game. Phoenix had done the hard part by winning in San Antonio. They had earned the right to decide the series at home with their full rotation. Instead, the Suns entered Game 5 shorthanded, and the Spurs entered with their core intact. The result felt inevitable. Horry's history made it worse. He had a reputation for timely plays on the biggest stage. Here, the timeliness is cut in a different way. It was not a big shot. It was a foul that removed the Suns' second and third most important pieces for a night. Nash was a sportsman, but he was also honest. He called for consistency, for the series to be decided by players on the floor rather than a rule triggered by a few steps. The league did not budge. Game 6 in San Antonio closed it. Phoenix battled, but the series ended 4-2. Years later, Suns fans still point to the hip check as the moment everything turned. Nash's career is defined by orchestration and composure. That night, composure did not matter. One shove and a rigid rulebook took Phoenix's best counters off the table. If you are listing names that Steve Nash had every reason to resent, Robert Horry sits near the top, because that single decision reshaped a season that felt like Phoenix's best shot. Let's stay in San Antonio and discuss Bruce Bowen. Game 3 in the 2007 West Semifinals tightened everything between Phoenix and San Antonio. Late in the second quarter, Steve Nash pushed the ball up the right side. As he crossed midcourt, Bruce Bowen met him and drove a knee into Nash's groin. Nash bent over, play stopped, and the Suns bench erupted. The sequence prompted an immediate pool report question and a league review. It became another exhibit in a rivalry already loaded with contact. Bowen's role was to bother lead guards at the point of attack. He crowded space, slid into ball handlers' paths, and tested how tightly officials would call hand checks and hip rides. Against Nash, that meant picking him up earlier, shading him to help, and using body contact to break rhythm. The knee in Game 3 crossed the line for Phoenix. Even after Nash stayed in, the tone of the series shifted. Every bump felt louder, every screen felt harder. Phoenix believed the incident was not isolated, just the clearest example. They pointed to closeouts that crowded landing zones and to bumps at half court that accumulated across a game. Nash preferred to keep the focus on execution, but even he acknowledged the physicality was part of the Spurs' plan. The Suns staff asked for protection on space, to land, and on midcourt traffic. The league reviewed the tape. The immediate takeaway inside the series was simple. Expect more hits, not fewer. From San Antonio's side, Bowen was doing the job he was kept for: shade the ball, tag cutters, deny rhythm. The Spurs stacked those habits with Tim Duncan's paint positioning and with guards who dug at the dribble from the nail. That mix turned many of Nash's clean reads into half reads. Instead of rising into a pull-up, he had to slide a step and find a different angle. Instead of a pocket pass at the free throw line, he had to shift to a bounce under a reaching hand. Over 7 games, those small disruptions matter. Over 6, they still do. Game 3 itself belonged to San Antonio. The Suns made runs, but turnovers and half-court stalls late were costly. After the knee, Nash regrouped and tried to speed Phoenix back into its flow. The Spurs answered with deliberate cuts and strong cuts from Manu Ginobili, then closed with Duncan touches that forced help. The win put Phoenix behind in the count and raised urgency for Game 4. The bad blood built as the set moved. 2 nights later came Robert Horry's hip check in Game 4, which led to the suspensions that stripped Phoenix in Game 5. To Suns players, the knee from Bowen and the shove from Horry felt connected. Both targeted Nash's space. Both tilted the series without being standard basketball plays. The frustration was not just about pain. It was about how easily rhythm can be taken from a pace team by contact that officials catch late or penalize after the fact. Tactically, Nash adjusted. He brought the ball up on angles to avoid straight-line bodying. He flipped sides earlier to make Bowen fight through handoffs. He called for higher screens to force a longer chase and create short roll opportunities for his bigs. When the lane filled, he used quick pitch-ahead passes to wings to bypass pressure and then re-entered possessions as a secondary handler. Those counters produced pockets of clean offense, but San Antonio's structure kept shrinking space. The series ended 4-2. History remembers the hip check and the suspensions. Inside Phoenix, the file on Bowen is just as thick. The knee to Nash in Game 3 crystallized how far the Spurs would go to tilt contact and how thin the margin was for the Suns to keep their system intact. For a point guard who valued flow, the play felt like a direct attack on the thing he built. That is why Bruce Bowen belongs on Steve Nash's list. We're staying in the West, but going to Los Angeles to talk about Nash's rivalry with Derek Fisher. We have already talked about the Spurs and Lakers. Of course, the next stop is another Laker who specialized in making guards miserable. Derek Fisher did it with angles, chests, and the kind of veteran contact that never looks loud on replay. Fisher's history with Steve Nash starts with the first Suns versus Lakers run in 2006. He chased over screens, bumped Nash at half court, and planted for charges anytime Nash snaked back to the middle. The plan was simple: make every catch feel late and every lane feel crowded. Nash still solved it, but he had to burn energy just to start possessions. That series went the distance and taught both sides what the other would tolerate. By the time the West Finals arrived in 2010, Fisher had the blueprint memorized. He met Nash early, shaded him into size, and attacked the dribble pocket with both hands high so officials saw arms straight. The late fourth quarter of that set delivered the moment Suns fans still bring up first. Fisher and Nash collided hard on a drive. Nash's nose broke and one eye ballooned, yet he stayed in and kept creating shots. The images were brutal. The sequence also explained Fisher's value to the Lakers. He did not back away from collisions with star guards, and he had a gift for turning speed into contact on his terms. Tactics mattered as much as hits. Fisher was strong in his base. On ball screens, he veered into Nash's path just enough to slow the turn without drawing a whistle. If Nash changed pace, Fisher recovered to the inside hip so the roll man could not catch a pocket pass on time. When the Suns lifted shooters from the corners, Fisher leaned toward the lift just long enough to tempt a skip pass, then sprinted back to contest. Those tiny delays robbed Phoenix of the half second their offense lived on. There was the clutch piece, too. Fisher hit timely jumpers that punished overhelp. If Nash dragged a second defender toward the nail, the kickout sometimes found Fisher at the slot. Make or miss, that shot changed how Phoenix could load the lane the next trip. He also drew momentum charges that felt like turnovers and timeouts rolled into one. Every time the whistle went Fisher's way, the Suns had to restart from a dead ball instead of a scramble. Nash adjusted in real time. He lifted screens higher to force longer chases. He flipped the angle at the last moment to create daylight. He pushed an early offense before Fisher could set his stance. He used re-screens to trap Fisher on the wrong shoulder and hit short roll passes to Amari Stoudemire. Those counters produced runs, especially at home. The Lakers answered by shrinking the paint with length behind Fisher and trusting him to fight back to Nash's chest by the shot. None of this turned into microphone drama. Fisher did not trade insults. Nash did not inflate the conflict. Their beef lived in possessions that ended with both men on the floor and a whistle coming late. That is why Fisher sits on a list like this. He represented the exact defender Nash hated dealing with most in May. Strong, square, impossible to shake with one move, always ready to take a hit if it made the next pass arrive a beat late. Years later, the swollen eye and the broken nose are the snapshots. The substance was 1,000 inches stolen on screens and drives by a guard who turned subtle contact into leverage. Unsurprisingly, we have another Spur on the list, and that's Tony Parker. The Suns and Spurs kept meeting when it mattered, and Parker was the pressure point that repeatedly stressed Steve Nash's teams. Phoenix had pace, spacing, and a surgical pick-and-roll attack. San Antonio had structure, Tim Duncan's paint control, and Parker's non-stop penetration. That contrast defined the matchup for most of the 2000s. The most famous collision came in Game 1 in 2007. Late, with the score tight, Nash and Parker banged heads near midcourt. Nash's nose opened up, trainers tried to stop the bleeding, and he had to sit for critical possessions. Phoenix lost by a single possession. The image of Nash begging to re-enter with tissue stuffed in his nose became the symbol of how thin the margin was against Parker and the Spurs. One accidental clash, a few missed minutes, and the opener slipped away. Go back to 2005 for the broader context. That West Finals set showed the problem in clear terms. Nash orchestrated beautifully and still had to survive Parker's north-south bursts. When Phoenix helped on Parker's drives, Duncan scored. When Phoenix stayed home, Parker finished through contact or floated shots before the help arrived. San Antonio won the series 4-1. The lesson carried forward. If you cannot control Parker's first step, the Spurs play from in front of the defense all night. In 2007, the pattern returned with higher stakes. Before the Game 4 chaos that led to suspensions, Parker kept putting the Suns into rotation, high middle pick and roll. Parker turned the corner. If Amari Stoudemire showed high, Parker pocket passed to a rolling Duncan. If the big stayed home, Parker reached the dots and scored. Nash's job was brutal. He had to guide the Suns' offense and then, on the other end, absorb Parker's pace or direct help to the right spots. Every misread became 2 points or a corner three. 2008 brought another chapter. Phoenix traded for Shaquille O'Neal and tried to match San Antonio's size while keeping Nash's tempo. Parker punished the transition period. He attacked before the new rotation settled, used early drag screens, and forced Phoenix's bigs into foul trouble. San Antonio won that first round 4-1. The recurring theme remained the same. Parker's ability to bend the first line of defense changed everything Phoenix wanted to do. There was one clean reversal. In 2010, the Suns swept the Spurs. Nash hit dagger shots, Amari lived at the rim, and Phoenix finally controlled the fourth quarters. Even then, Parker found stretches where he turned the lane into a runway. The difference was Phoenix's counters. Nash lifted screens higher, the weak side stayed home on shooters, and the Suns closed defensive possessions with rebounds. That sweep does not erase the earlier years. It proves how much precision Phoenix needed to overcome Parker's pressure. Let's round things off with another Laker. Great, Kobe Bryant. The Suns and Lakers kept finding each other at the worst possible times, and the series swung on Kobe Bryant's answers to Steve Nash's pace. In 2006, the Lakers jumped ahead 3-1. Kobe hit the Game 4 winner at the horn and looked in complete control. Then the series flipped. Phoenix forced Game 7 and ran the Lakers off the floor. Nash pushed tempo, Amari Stoudemire and Leandro Barbosa finished, and Kobe watched the lead vanish over 3 straight games. That comeback hardened both sides. 2007 felt different. The Suns were deeper and sharper. Nash managed matchups, Raja Bell hounded the ball, and Phoenix won 4-1. Kobe still stole quarters with mid-post footwork and pull-ups over contests, but the Suns limited second chances and lived at the rim. The takeaway for Nash was simple. If Phoenix could protect the glass and avoid live ball turnovers, the game moved to his tempo, and Kobe had fewer fast break chances to punish mistakes. 2010 brought the peak. The West Finals went to 6 games, and every late possession felt like a test of patience. Phoenix showed zone looks to slow Kobe's drives and tried to make him pass out of the mid-post. He answered with impossible shot-making, including the Game 5 winner that Ron Artest finished at the buzzer after a miss and a scramble. In Game 6, Kobe closed with contested jumpers over Grant Hill's perfect defense and a baseline dagger after a pump fake. He even tapped head coach Alvin Gentry on the shoulder after a tough match, a small moment that showed how personal the chess match had become. Kobe later called it a love-hate rivalry and admitted he hated the Suns, naming Nash and Bell. That fits the tape. Nash wanted angles, quick decisions, and clean runs into early offense. Kobe wanted to pull the game into tight spaces where a great player decides it. Across 3 distinct series, both got what they wanted in turns. When it broke Kobe's way, it was because his late clock shot making outran Phoenix's math. If this breakdown landed, subscribe, share it with a friend, and tell me the next rivalry or player feud you want covered.